Hi, welcome to the shop. This is a video about a very fancy plane that I've recently acquired. It's about the same size as a Stanley 4.5. This is a Stanley 4.5 smoothing plane. This one happens to be corrugated, but the plane we're going to talk about today is not corrugated. But it's comparable in size to this plane. But it costs a lot more than this one here. So I'm going to set this aside and introduce you. I think I can put it on its face here with the cutter off of the board. It's called a CT-10. It's a Bridge City Toolworks plane. It's sitting here, and it comes in this beautiful presentation box, walnut, and here's the plane. It's a beauty, and you can see here that it's a comparable size to the 4.5 Stanley, but there are some major differences. One difference you can see is that this screw goes through into the handle, and this one doesn't have any here. It's a beautiful rosewood, and it's a high gloss lacquer finish on the tote handle and the front knob and on this piece here. But the infill, which the Stanley does not have, the infill is also rosewood, but it has a matte finish, and it's really a beautiful finish on that. The iron is thicker than the Stanley. As you can see, it's not corrugated. It's also, the construction of it is dovetailed. It's you can see that the sides are bronze and the bottom is steel, but you can see the dovetails here that joins the sides, the cheeks of the plane to the base or the sole. And you can also see that it has an adjustable throat, which the Stanleys didn't have, at least not on the 4.5s. The front knob acts as the tensioner for that sliding plate. So you just turn this and then you can adjust that plate forward or back. And it functions just as the 4.5, as a smoothing plane. So let me bring you in a little closer and show you some more of the details about this plane here. I moved the camera down so that you could be looking at it more of a direct angle on this profile, because I wanted to show you some differences here. The primary difference in this is that this is at a low 22.5 degree angle. This is considered a low angle plane. And you can see in the 4.5, like the 4 and the 3 and the other Stanley Bailey planes, they have a higher bedding angle. And this one you can see is much lower than that one there. The other thing that you can see is this, there's no screw here holding this front of the tote in. And this has what we call a Norris adjuster. So this adjuster here will move the iron in and out for depth, but it will also act as a lateral adjustment and twist the iron left and right. On the way the Baileys work in the Stanley is that you have this lever here, and that is your lateral adjuster to turn the angle of the iron, and then down here is your depth adjuster. So with the Norris adjuster here, it serves those two purposes. And the holding down of the iron is different. You see this has a pressure plate here that pivots, and this rod here coming through puts pressure on the iron here and keeps it stable, whereas these have this lever cap with a lever, a cam lever, that tightens it on and holds it on. Also, on the Stanley planes, they have an iron and they have a chip breaker on top of that, whereas this is just a single thicker iron than this and the lower angle. So let's check it out a little closer now. You see the two differences in them. The low angle is supposed to be better on end grain than the higher angle, or on clearing knots as well. A lot of times these higher angles will cause some tear out on things like that, and these are supposed to cure all that and be able to go across some of those knots with a lot more ease and less tear out. I want to take this apart so you can see the inner workings of it. So this is the hold down, and this is a pivot here. So we're going to open this up, and one of the first things you notice is that this little mushroom cap at the bottom, you see, it's not attached to that. There's a ball here, and so when you're putting in the iron, you need to line that up so that that goes into it and applies the proper pressure. That piece there is interesting because you might have a tendency to lose it. So that's a cautionary tale waiting to happen. Is I would suggest that whenever you remove the iron, you remove this fully and set it aside out of your way so that you don't lose it. Now, the way the iron fits in, it can be a little precarious, but we'll see. We'll take it out. This needs to be moved down. You have to open this up enough that it moves down to relieve the pressure on the iron to give you room to pull the iron out. Now, you can see that the iron is a bevel up iron. Here's the bevel on it. And whereas the Bailey uses the bevel down to make its cuts. So with this lower angle, the bevel is up on this. And you see these 4 holes here. That fits into the Norris adjuster. Let me set the iron down here. See if we can do that and take out the Norris adjuster. So here you see the Norris adjuster, and the way it works is that this piece here is held into a circular divot in this lower portion, and then this little piece will aimed up, and that fits into one of these holes on the iron. And so when you adjust this in or out, this stays stationary, and this moves in or out, and that withdraws this and moves the iron further in or further out. It's a little more precarious to set up and get the iron in there because you have to know where to set this, because you can see this can be moved up or down. Here you can see that there's a matte finish on the inlay here, whereas this is a gloss lacquer finish. So this really matches the infill, where the 3 pieces on top have a high gloss lacquer finish. So I'm going to set this down now and show you the mouth. So here's what the inner workings looks like. This is the ball that I was talking about, that little mushroom head sits on and puts pressure on the iron. This is where the Norris adjuster central cap lodges itself. And then down here, there's a piece that's machined out to give you clearance for the adjuster for the iron going in and out. On the face of this, you can see the Bridge City logo, and it's signed by the designer here. You'll see the information. I'll do a close-up of that and make it easier for you to see it, but that's the pivot point that goes down and locks in the iron and acts as a chip breaker. Here, this round part sends the shaving up. Here you can see that the mouth is very tightly closed. I'll turn it over so you see how tight that is. And that's adjustable through this piece here. And so you just loosen this a little bit, and now you can slide that back and forth, and you can see that that opens and closes the mouth. We'll leave it a little open, or I can bring it in, make it even with the front here, tighten it off a little bit. It doesn't take a lot of pressure to tighten it, just a quick thing. There's a rod that goes through here, and this plate, similar to that mushroom in the back, holds that piece tight there. So let's go ahead and put the iron in. You can watch me do that, and I'll show you not the difficulty, but that it can be a little tedious. Okay, we have to start with the Norris adjuster and aiming this up. The Norris adjuster sits into that little piece right there, nice and snug. And you see it's perfectly round, but it really seats nicely. Now you see this is the pivot for the lateral adjuster. So now what we have to do is to get that piece at the end into the iron. So I'm going to take this back out and show you how that part works. So here's the iron, and that little nib sits in one of those holes. Now I'm going to start it with that hole, which would be the furthest forward, and we'll move it in gently and see if we can get the Norris adjuster. And this is where this has to pivot out of the way. See if we can get the Norris adjuster into the hole. There we go. So that is there, and we're going to put that little mushroom piece underneath this. Get it close to being square, just eyeballing it. There. And we'll bring this in, and now we'll look at the bottom and see how far it's protruding. It's protruding quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen it up, and I'm going to retract it back into the plane by turning this knob here, and that's as far back as it will go. So we'll loosen this up a little bit, and we'll straighten out the iron. You see there's a little bit of slop in that iron there. That's not part of the Norris adjuster. And if the Norris adjuster, if this knob is too far back, it doesn't want to pivot easily. So we want to keep an eye on that. Now we'll see how far that is. And that's still protruding out quite a bit. So really, what I want to do is I want to bring that piece back one. So I'm going to remove this, take this piece off, and we'll pull this out with the adjuster as well. And what we're going to do is take this off, and I'm going to start this further down. And we'll put it back in the same hole, and we'll see what that does. So there. That's much further out. So I had to put the iron back in that forward hole, but what I did was I retracted that rod all the way to the back so that it didn't protrude out of the plane too much. And now I'm going to run the iron forward using this adjuster on the back, loosen this a little bit, and it's very light to the touch to push it forward. And That's withdrawing it. Okay, now I've advanced it forward, and let me see if you can see. I'll bring it in closer here. This dark line there, the reflection you can see, that's the iron. That's the edge of the iron. And it's coming out a little too far over here. And this mouth is a little bigger than I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust it over a little bit this way. I'm loosening this. And there I've got the iron more centered. Now I'm going to advance it. Now I can see the iron looking down it. I can see the iron already. And it's just slightly out. But one side is out more than the other. So I need to adjust that lateral lever sideways to try to get it to be correct. Let me look down it again. And that looks very good, but not perfect. But fairly nice. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close up the mouth a little bit, and we'll just do a little test cut here. And it appears to me like the left side is cutting a little more than the right. So I'm just eyeballing. It looks pretty good. It looks fairly even. So it's fairly fidgety, and the NARS adjuster, unlike the Bailey, doesn't it doesn't control a lot of the side-to-side movement of the iron. So you really have to kind of move it to where you want it and tighten it down and play around with it. The setup for it is harder than the Bailey 4.5, in my opinion. Now, it is nice that I can close the throat up, but so now looking down this and sighting down it, it looks to me like I have the iron fairly even all the way across. Let's see how she does. It's a nice shaving. Now this is a piece of sapele, and it was not particularly flat, and I have all these ribs back here that still need to go. But as this is cutting, I can see that it's widening these pieces out, and it's done a good job up here. Let me go across on an angle here a little bit and see. Now a smoothing plane is for smoothing the top of a board just like this. And sapele is a little harder mahogany than a lot of others. There are so many different varieties of mahogany, and some are very soft, some are very hard, and this is doing a nice job. The shavings are nice. I'm going to set that down just for a second and see what a 4.5 does on it. I have to tell you, I think the 4.5 is doing a better job than the low angle. Let's take this and turn it so we're jointing it rather than smoothing it. We'll see how that does. Start with a 4.5. It's doing a nice job. And it's giving me a fairly good shaving. Now let's switch back to the CT10. Well, I have to say that was a nice cut. So it's a little thicker. So in order to thin it out, I'm going to loosen this a little and then withdraw this a hair. Tighten that back up. That's a better shaving. That's a fine shaving. Full width. Good surface. It's a good shaving. Let's get it a little looser. Now, every time you do this, you really have to loosen this a little bit to make it move easily. There, that's a nice shaving. Nice shaving. Is it any better than the 4.5? The nice thing about the 4.5 is you don't have to loosen something to withdraw the iron. You just kind of turn that, and see, that just took it out completely. Each time I'm taking a stroke, I'm adjusting this knob just a little further forward. And I like that adjustment. And sighting down it, I can see that the iron is just barely on the surface, but that's a beautiful, beautiful shaving. So is that one. Nothing wrong with that, either one of them. I'm going to switch off and go to a different wood. And this is a piece of cedar, which is a fairly soft wood. Now I've got the shaving, so thin. I'm going to try to adjust this forward. I'm not going to relieve this. I'm just going to try to nudge it a little bit and see. It's working very well. And it did actually advance. Even if I am a little nervous, advancing this, leaving this tight. My tendency is still to loosen it, but it's doing a nice job of smoothing out the top here. Let's see what that 4.5 does. Works equally as well. Now, let's try going across the grain, because this low angle is supposed to be better for that. Ooh, that was nice. That's beautiful. It likes that. that low angle seems to like going across the grain more. Let's see how the 4.5 does. Move it forward. Well, the 4.5 also at the higher angle is still giving me a nice shaving across the grain. So I think they're comparable. The CT10 smoothing plane is lacquered, and it says here's the paperwork on it. The CT10 features a lacquered 4-finger sculpted rosewood handle free from the visual interruptions typically created by the spine bolt. There's a lot more room here than there is in the 4.5, and I have to put some fingers on the outside of the 4.5. I can't really fit 4 fingers in there, whereas this is wide open, so that's true. Totally created by the spine bolt. Most plane handles do not reflect today's ergonomic data. That's true, but I didn't find this any more comfortable. If anything, up in here, I think it's a little too far back. I would rather there be a little more of a cutout in here, but I imagine that they needed it for the strength to thicken this part up. Our handle is perfect for all hand sizes. We've built this entire handle around a turned 3/8 inch diameter stainless steel spine that is permanently fixed to the base plate and sole. Now, the permanently attached, fixed, I don't fully understand, because there is a Phillips screw here, and I'm not sure if the rod goes up through where it actually goes through, but I'm not going to take that apart to see. So the permanently fixed, and maybe it is, maybe it's glued to that 3/8 inch spine. Fixed to the base plate and the sole, none of which is visible to the naked eye. The results are not only unbelievably strong and heirloom functional, but beautiful as well. That's true. The front handle is hand turned around a brass ferrule, and that also works as the adjustable throat locking knob. I showed that to you. It's raised off the sole to ensure your fingers have plenty of holding space, and it does. That is true. Again, there are no visible screws or bolts to hinder the lines of this flawlessly executed turning. This tool was produced in 2002, which is what it says on this front plate. The problem is that I have is that this was a $900 plane. This is $150 to $200, depending on the quality of it, the no breaks in the tote, the rosewood, the Japanning finish. It can probably go up to about $250 these days. Of course, when I bought this plane, I think I probably only paid around $100 for it. Big difference to $900 or $895. Now, that was the original price. These are collectible. I believe that I've seen them as high as $1,200 and $1,300 for this. I like the thickness of the iron. I like the shavings that it's doing. I like the look of the dovetails on the side. I think it's a beautiful plane. You have to decide whether it's worth the money or not. The two of them I found totally comparable in the shaving that they gave and the surface that they left. So I can't say that this is that much better than this, although it has that low angle. But even at this higher angle, and I have to say, I keep my irons sharp, it was doing a good cut on end grain just as well as this one was. So there you have it. A beautiful, beautiful, beautiful collector's plane, well worth having and keeping in a collection. I think it's a little bit too much to set up every time. I think that Bailey is a lot easier. The adjuster, the maneuvering of the iron to get it into place, the adjustment of where you put that through the hole in the iron, all of that took way too long as far as I'm concerned, because with this one here, the setting remains the same. I can adjust it with one finger from underneath, whereas this one here, in order for me to adjust that, first of all, my fingers can't reach that knob to turn it, whereas on the number 4.5, very easily my finger comes down here to turn it. I prefer loosening this a little bit so that you're not putting a lot of scratch marks into the iron here, or stress on the Norris adjuster trying to push it with this clamp down. So I think that this is a little too much work for somebody that really wants a plane to use as a working tool. Beautiful, nice shavings, but you have to decide on your own whether it's worth the money over this one here. And I know a few people that have these and like them, and I don't find anything bad about them, except that the setting up is a little bit more fidgety than this. But the cuts are nice. I like the adjustable throat. The nice thing is that you could open that up and really bring it down in and really do some rough cutting with it. But a tool this fine, I think, is better off being used for fine finishes and not the heavy duty work that this takes on. The plane really does a nice job of it, as well as the 4.5 as well. So I can't say that one is better than the other. This is certainly beautiful and exceptional in the machining, in the design, the thickness of the iron. The Norris adjuster leaves more to me to be something to worry about. I prefer the Bailey as far as setting it up and adjusting it. I'm going to do another video after this one on the CT12, which is the 40-degree bench plane. It's very similar to this, has an adjustable throat. The knob is taller. It's again an angle, a bevel up iron with a Norris adjuster, but higher. And we'll see how that does and see if that's worth the money. It was more expensive than this plane, so we'll have to see. But this is fun to use, and it does give a beautiful shaving, so you can't complain about that. But I don't know about the money differential. This is maybe a $200 plane at the most, and this is, like I say, almost $1,000. So between the two, if you're a woodworker, probably the Bailey's the best one to stay with. If you're a collector or a hobbyist and you like working with beautiful tools and you've got the money, the CT 410 is a beautiful plane. There's nothing wrong with it, and comes with this beautiful walnut presentation box. They no longer make them. They're not available, but you can still find them on auction sites and in other places. I bought this from a friend of mine, and I got a good deal on it, so I didn't feel so bad as paying that full price for it. But so you have to really look out for them for a while. But again, it is a beautiful plane and fun to work with, and lovely to own. So thanks for coming in the shop. I hope you've gotten something out of this video. And in the times that we're living in, it can be stressful, and maybe a good place to relieve the stress is in the shop playing with planes. It certainly helps me. I hope you guys will stay safe and keep your friends safe, and smile every once in a while, and come back and see me in the shop sometime. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you subscribing. And I love it when people share these videos with other people, because it helps me get more viewership. And that's really what I appreciate doing. So till the next time, take care.